Chicago really. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. This for my old school Chevy colors.
Welcome everyone to First and Goal, the podcast with the man with no plan, the beast with no teeth, the puck with the pluck, the unofficial, official voice of the other opinionated voiceless, Jay in the UP.
And welcome everybody to another live edition of First and Goal with me, your host, Jay in the UP. We got a lot to get into today. The Aaron Rodgers ESPN 540 interview with Wilde and Tausch, the bomb, the 4-year waiting rebuttal that Green Bay Nation has wanted their Hall of Fame quarterback to get back at all these guys. The wait is over, and we've got a lot to get into with that. But we're also joined by a very special guest today, Dave. You also know him on Twitter as in Gunakuth We Trust, at Steak and Cheese. Say hi, Dave.
Hey, y'all. How's everyone doing?
And so, Dave, we met on Twitter, and we've had some interactions. But let's get into this right away. And what I'm going to start by doing is we're going to play, surprisingly, a Micah Hyde clip here. And Micah Hyde was on the NFL Network today, I believe. And this is what Micah Hyde had to say about Aaron Rodgers.
That stuff means nothing to me. My experience with Aaron, one of the best teammates I ever had. Just true competitor, and all that stuff is beyond me. And I appreciate everything that he did for myself included. Just the talks that we've had and everything. Just a great football player, and will be for many years in this league.
Is he a good leader, Micah?
I do. I believe he's a good leader on and off the field. Like I said, the talks that we've had that had nothing to do with football have made me a better person, a better husband, and hopefully a great dad. So, I appreciate everything he's done for me. That stuff means nothing to me. My experience with it.
Well, I don't know if you could hear that real well or not, Dave, but basically Micah Hyde's on there saying, in his experience when he played with Aaron, he was a great teammate. It wasn't just about the football stuff. It was off the field stuff, conversations about, being a husband and all this and da-da-da. And he doesn't understand all this stuff going on. So, and this is getting more and more prominent now that we've seen this Bleacher Report story really lit a fire, whereas everybody seemed to be quiet before, and now they're coming out.
Yeah, I really don't understand why Jennings and Finley went after Rodgers in this article with how many other players like Hyde and Jordy and Kuhn. And then now you also have the outside linebacker that went to the AAF. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Jaron Elliott. Okay, there it is.
And Jaron Elliott stuck his middle finger up to all the pundits like Colin Cowherd and out there. So it's not just the mild-mannered guys like Micah Hyde. It's also guys like Jaron Elliott who are very fiery in their now defense of number 12.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you get guys who are usually pretty quiet on matters like this come out and say it says a really big statement. And those 5 guys I just named are usually pretty quiet in their stances and how they see things. So it really made Jennings and Finley look silly on what they came out and said in the article.
Now, that brings us into the next little clip here. And I'm sure, Dave, in case you can't hear this while I play it, I'm sure you hear this. This is the ESPN 540 clip that Tony Cartagena has done for their Wilde and Tausch show and put out on Twitter. We just happened to use it today. And it's the one where he's basically talking about, Jermichael, if I'm not a good teammate, why was I spending all this time with you talking about plays and all this stuff? So we're going to play that real quick, and we'll get into this.
The other part that curious and you didn't mention them by name, but it is the same two guys every time. It is Greg Jennings. It is Jermichael Finley. I'm curious, did you have some idea when they were your teammates? I mean, one hasn't been your teammate since 2012. The other one since October 2013 when he injured his neck. Did you have an idea that there was not a connection with those guys when they were your teammates, or has this come out in them in days since they were your teammates?
No, I mean, I didn't know that. No, they didn't mention it to me. My first initial thought is, at what point did J. Mike think I was a bad leader? Couldn't have been when I was up in his room every Saturday night before the games, going over plays and talking about checks I was going to make and plays where he was going to be number one read. It couldn't have been when I was at the hospital and he broke his neck and spent a couple hours with him. Couldn't have been when I followed up and saw how he was doing. So when did this happen where he was like, oh, yeah, he's not a natural born leader. And with Greg, I don't even know what to say with Greg.
Does it bother you?
It bothers me that every time there's an article, it's the same two people. And if there's not an article about me, do you ever hear their name anywhere else? Do they get interviews with people? Are they out there making comments? Are they making the rounds on the shows? I would say probably not. Definitely not in the same capacity. So I would say, at what point do you move on? You talk about me being sensitive and petty. At what point do you move on or stop telling the same stories? Like, really? A conversation with Carlos Rodgers on the field making a joke about his situation? That's what you're going to hold on to? And, I knew that, I wasn't going to be a Packer next season. It's the same two people. It's the same story. At some point, you got something else to talk about.
All right. That's a lot there now. I mean, I think if you're Jermichael Finley there after hearing his comments about, how my bad teammate when I did this and that, and to me it kind of is like, what's the validity of his comments now? Where he doesn't have a leg to stand on. It pulls the rug out from under Jermichael Finley's his stance he's had on Rodgers now. I mean, there's not a whole else left for him to say.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, he's been saying this for a while. He's been like, he tries to praise Rodgers whenever he does well, but whenever he's down and he's having family problems or something, Finley's always there to rag on him and say, oh, he's not a good leader. But now Rodgers completely says, oh, hey, I was there when you broke your neck. You didn't mention that. Or how about when I made you the number one read every weekend in the new scheme for the season?
Yeah, and it's not, he's not just talking about making him the number one read. In those comments here, Dave, he's specifically talking about the Saturday nights before the games, on the road and at home, because even at home, I guess they stay in a hotel, just to keep routines and stuff, of being in this guy's room, because without saying it, it's, okay, this is another thing about how Rodgers works too. By saying this, he's also taking a jab at his overall football intelligence and kind of saying, for a guy that's not very football smart, how the hell is he going to know what it takes to be a good leader on the football field? Because he's basically saying every Saturday night, while he was part of this offense, because the first 2 years after he got drafted, he was, kind of practice squad type dude, So it was only four seasons, right? That he had to spend hours on Saturday night explaining the plays where this guy and what if this defense does this, essentially breaking down each play that he had any importance to, just so that Rodgers could feel confident that he was going to be where he needed to be. So I think that's a bigger picture than just, how people I think are perceiving this. This is a big deal. That's a lot of extra time for a guy you're talking isn't a good leader and isn't a good teammate. I mean, I haven't heard about Tom Brady's, any of his receivers coming out and anything like that, for as much as we want to pat that guy on the back.
No, the lone thing that kind of stood out to me is he was there after Finley broke his neck. He was there in the hospital room with his family members, and the fact that Finley completely ignores that just amazes me.
Yeah. And the Jennings thing, I mean, we've got a little here, and we're gonna play a little bit and break it down because this is the longest one. He says a lot, and then I kind of cut the last 30 seconds off because he basically is going on a little tirade about how, well, it doesn't matter what I say because Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback and everybody's gonna like him more. It's kind of an
He just
easy
doesn't
out.
have anything else to stand on. That's why
Right.
he has to do that.
It's an easy out. So I figure, we don't need to waste our time with that. So here we'll do this Jennings and we'll listen a little bit. And have you gotten a chance to listen to this one, the Jennings Colin Coward?
Yep, I did a little bit ago.
All right, so we're gonna play this and we'll stop it here and there and talk about, because there's a lot to break down on this.
Oh, of course.
Let's respond to that. What do you make of those comments by Aaron Rodgers saying that about you?
Well, number one, when I listened to the entire interview, and then he's asked about, Jermichael Finley, he gave some points that are like, wow, if I'm Jermichael, I'm like, okay, maybe I should reconsider my stance. When he's asked about myself, he says he doesn't know what to say, and here's my response to that. You don't know what to say because there is really nothing to say. It really isn't. I am not trying to continue to add fuel to a fire. Before I ever talked about this, and Colin, I talked about it on this show with you, sitting right there across from you in Joy, when the world first really heard this. My mom, my wife, that was their first time ever hearing this. So this was something that I wasn't trying to throw out there and add fuel to a fire. It was a story that was real, something that bothered me. And it could be called sensitive. That's fine. I'll take that. But I wasn't trying to throw it back in his face. I wanted to talk to him about it first. I had opportunity to do that.
Okay, we're gonna just pause right there because he said he was trying to talk to him. He had opportunity, and he's trying to make it sound, like this whole story thing had nothing to do, like he could have fixed it. Well, guys, we can look back on social media, right, Dave? We were just talking about this, while you guys were listening to that. About this goes back to when the contract started in 2012. This happened. This comment with Carlos Rodgers happened. Greg Jennings was offered $12.5 million per year in 2012. And we were just talking about this, Dave. It's 2019, and guys are just now breaking the $15 million barrier. And we're talking number one receivers. Greg Jennings was the number 3 at that point. Okay? Randall Cobb had emerged that season. Jordy Nelson was the pure number 1. And so he was the number 2, but he was being replaced already by young guys, and he was getting hurt. And he said, don't talk to me unless you're going to give me $15 million. And that was like crazy talk from a wide receiver at that time. People need to remember that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. He wanted all the attention on him, especially because Jordy was clearly becoming Rodgers' favorite target.
Well, he had already been. I mean, since the Super Bowl, Jordy Nelson clearly in the Super Bowl could have been the MVP.
Slowly phased out after the Super Bowl.
No, I'm saying that Super Bowl is Jordy's coming out party. He could have been the MVP. What, he had like 7 or 8 catches, like 150 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, Jennings had a great game too.
He also dropped 2 passes too that could have been touchdowns.
Right. And that was early on in the game before he even got going. So, I mean, yeah, Jordy had already emerged. And not to mention, when you listen to Aaron talk in other clips from this interview that are obviously out there on Twitter, you can find him easily by searching the Wildy and Tell Show guys. And he talks about how close he is with Jordy and Randall Cobb, who he calls Cobby, and that those two are like brothers. They're like family. And so clearly he had and James Jones, same way, and I forgot to mention him he was around and emerging as a big time target. So yeah, Jennings had been replaced at that point, and he's talking about wanting crazy money as a 28, 29-year-old starting to be off an injured receiver. It sounds very sensitive to me.
The fact he went ahead and turned down the Packers for $500,000 less to go play for the Vikings and Christian Ponder, and then try and hype up Christian Ponder to try and get underneath Rodgers' skin. But the thing is, Jennings never put up the evidence to earn that money